Somehow, some way, the Iowa Hawkeyes got the victory. 25-24 over Penn State. We break it down today. Locked on Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I've been covering the Hawkeyes for over 20 years. I was there with you in Kinnick Stadium, and you might be telling it by the voice here as we come to you late after the victory by the Hawkeyes. Still battling and going to be battling through this one. But boy, what a fun night that it was as Iowa gets it done 25-24. Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. Well, of course, we are talking about all the factors in the Iowa victory, what it means for Iowa going forward, and what is still out there for this Iowa football team. The play of Mark Gronowski, absolutely incredible, running the football in a fashion we haven't seen from a quarterback in a really long time. We'll talk about those numbers as well. Iowa finding a way to win as we go through a bunch of different angles to this one. Let's start with the positivity. And there are negatives. There's some frustrating aspects, and we'll certainly talk about those. But I mentioned this a few weeks back, and the fellowship of the miserable that is out there that cannot take a fun night at Kinnick Stadium, cannot take a victory from your team against a frustrating Penn State team that has 4 losses now, yet still an incredibly talented team. We're not going to sit here and go through and paint some negative picture. That's not what I'm going to do. Look, I think anybody, and you everydayers, you certainly know this. I'll call a spade a spade. If Iowa needs to be called out, if there's things that are happening that are just deplorable, then we're going to talk about those. But if your takeaway from this one is Kirk sucks, this coaching staff doesn't have it, who cares? This probably isn't going to be the program for you. The negativity, there's people that will live in that world, and when it's there, I will call it. But this one, to do that, to be in Kinnick Stadium, to be able to experience what we saw on Saturday night is what makes being a Hawkeye fan great. And what makes cheering this program on, this university, and having something that we can point to. Look, is Iowa going to win a national championship in our lifetimes? Probably not. People will point to, oh, look at what Indiana's doing. That's a once-in-a-lifetime situation. This is a losingest program in Power Conference history that is doing this. The likelihood of that happening, of catching lightning in a bottle at a place like Iowa, is incredibly low. And also remember how they did that. They also spent big time in the portal to make it happen. Mendoza didn't come cheap. Iowa went out and spent and got a quarterback, and we start there. Mark Gronowski, on a day where he gets intercepted early, often deflected ball, after a performance where you can see he's still just not comfortable going down the field and really going through his progressions. And we'll go back and we'll rewatch the game, and we'll have that for you here early in the week. But when you watch this a second time, one of the things that I'm going to be looking for is to see, go through those passes again and see how deep into his progressions is he getting. Because you go back to last week and he made the return against Wisconsin, and they didn't have to do much in that game. But I thought you saw a guy that was going through it quick. That worked out incredibly well here because there were times that the runs were certainly there. And had to play late in the first half. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Of course, the decision by Kirk Ferentz with the field goal attempt, all the different aspects that go into it. But back to Gronowski, the toughness that he displays with what looks to be a pretty significant injury. Kirk mentioned after the game, he's still not 100%. This is still a guy that is battling. But he's battling to stay on the field. He's not going to take his ball and go home. He's not going to whine and weep and throw out asinine Instagram posts like the previous quarterback. It's not who he is. It's not how he's wired. And it's good that we have him on our side. These are the kind of people that you go to war for. These are the kind of people that you fight for. This is how you grind out victories that for a long time in the first half, you look like the better team. And then for a stretch, you didn't. and you're down 21-10, and it feels like hope is lost. But I'll tell you, inside the stadium, that was not the feeling. There was still that special aspect of Kinnick Stadium. And what makes Kinnick Stadium amazing to be able to go through these and relive it and see it time and time again. What I was able to do and do it because of you, the fans. We heard Trace McSorley as they were talking about that in the broadcast, watching the replay and saw that quote on social media. He called it the, what, most difficult, loudest, that's what it was, loudest stadium that he had played in, both college and pro. That says a lot. Played in some big games at Kinnick Stadium. And for him to say that says a lot. All right. Gronowski, let's take a look at the numbers. And he finishes with 130 yards passing in the football game. Just eye-opening performance out of him. 130 yards out of your quarterback. The Iowa quarterback is doing that. So here's the numbers. Gronowski, 9 carries, 130 yards, the 2 touchdowns, had the quarterback sneak, had the 4-yarder on another, a keeper, and of course salting the game away. The play that set up the touchdown by Caden Weechin. The play where looked like it was designed, zone read to go outside. Instead, he cuts it in, makes the guy miss, and then is off to the races and can't win that race right now with that knee. Still, set that up. I mean, just completely change the trajectory. I wonder, how's Iowa going to go 75 yards with the limited passing game that they have? How are they going to do this? Well, you rip off a 67-yarder. That's going to help. And it did. And then the final play before the kneel down. You need a first down. It's 3rd and 6. What do we all think's going to happen? Every single one of us. We're in the middle of the line, punt it back with a little time left on the clock, and then hope to hold on for dear life. Instead, he gets it, tucks it. A beautiful fake, by the way. I mean, those little things. When you look at Iowa football and you talk to anybody that's been to a practice, anybody that's been involved, former players, they'll tell you it gets tedious. It's monotonous. You're doing the same things over and over and over again. And that's why you see the hand placement of the defensive linemen. You see the offensive linemen. They're so well trained and well schooled to do all these different things. And while that's happening, you have the other component in a situation like that, where you're going to play out that fake. Yes, you need to have your hands right. You need to play out that fake correctly in order to get everybody sucked in. They do it. Gronowski darts up the left side. First down, ball game. Iowa wins. Iowa's 5-2. And we know, I think we all know, right, what this could have been. We'll talk big picture a little bit later on and get into that, but we got to start here at the top here with Mark Gronowski. Let's talk a little bit deeper about the game. We're going to go through a little bit. Got to talk about the defense as well. What an outstanding performance. Special teams with some questions, and Kirk Ferentz with some questionable choices. We'll talk about it all as we continue reacting to the Iowa win over Penn State 25-24. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5. If it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel app, so much fun to use. A lot of different things that you can get involved in. Maybe it's the same game parlay. Maybe you're just round robin and a bunch of bets, seeing if you can come up with something big. They got you covered there. And their player prop menu is as deep as you are going to find out there. So many different things, and not just before the game. They have live lines out there as well for those player props that you can jump into like I do on the FanDuel app. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving deep into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. That's FanDuel.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that help make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly OpenPhone. It's the same great business phone system you heard me talk about before, just has a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table with every customer conversation. It counts. And you need a phone system that delivers and keeps you connected 24/7. Quote is the number one business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works right through an app on your phone or even your computer. No more carrying two phones, juggling all kinds of different things, or having to rely on a landline. Good luck with that anymore. I love Quo. And as a small business owner, this is something that can absolutely help you out. I know a missed call can absolutely hurt me and impact the bottom line. That's why Quo is the place that can get you all going. If you're a solo operator like myself, juggling everything, it's a lot. And even if you're a part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo. Formerly OpenPhone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's quo.com, quo.com/lockedoncollege. And if you got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Trent Condon back with you once again here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Podcast side, 5-star reviews, all of that. A big thank you. And of course, you everydayers, as we are your everyday Iowa football podcast, your daily Iowa Hawkeye podcast right here on the Locked On Network, and couldn't do it with our everyday listeners, our everydayers here on Locked On. We continue as we look back at the 25-24 win over Penn State. Dive back into the game. I mentioned the early interception by Gronowski off the deflected ball. Iowa, how about Xavier Nwankpa? In fact, let's go there. This defense was on the field a ton. And yet with all that, Iowa was on the field, I think it was 74 plays is what they ended up giving up. 74 plays is what Penn State ran in this game. They're out there, over 36 minutes of time in possession. Yet with all that, Penn State, yes, with a new quarterback, I get it. Still, you hold this team overall, 74 plays, to 3.6 yards per play. It's incredible. Iowa, by the way, on the other hand, in the yards per play statistic, they came in at 6.4. It's a healthy number, and certainly a healthy number when your passing game isn't very good. Penn State had a little success. They were able to run the football a little bit. Grunkmeyer had that one good drive that they marched down the field in the second quarter. Really, that was the biggest one that he was able to put together. But back to Nwankpa. And it wasn't just that he had an interception. Got that off the ball that bounced up in the air, turned it down inside the 1-yard line. It says if I would take the lead. But the physicality that he's played with, and that has stepped up in a big time way really throughout the season. This wasn't a one-off. Arguably, I think maybe definitively, this was Xavier Nwankpa's best game in a Hawkeye uniform. But this has been trending this direction. We're seeing a guy that is doing more, that's been able to do more, certainly in the course of this season, on the back end of this defense and the physicality, wrapping up, finishing plays. And we've seen a lot of that this year. And it all culminated tonight with his best one. Also had a forced fumble in the game. Big tip of the ball cap to Xavier Nwankpa and what he was able to do. Zach Lutmer, he was running around making plays. Really like what we see out of him. His versatility now. We talked about him playing cornerback last week against Wisconsin. And speaking of that, when they did that, that meant that Deshaun Lee was not on the field. And it's very easy for a guy that has been in and out of the lineup, for a guy that has been there as a starter, then a reserve, then a nickel back, and just a bunch of different things, right? For him to pout, bitch, moan, complain, whatever phrase you want to use. And he did. And Kirk mentioned that also in the postgame. And I think that's important. And again, that shows you the DNA of this program. It shows you those things that don't show up when you're watching the football game. But guys, stay engaged. And guys, don't do that. And instilling those kind of qualities in a football program, one of the great strengths of Kirk Ferentz. Now, there's weaknesses. And don't worry, we'll get to some of those here a little bit later on. But want to give a shout out to Deshaun Lee. Had the interception. Also, late in the game, who was on coverage on that final pass from Penn State before Gronowski had the keeper that salted it away? It was Deshaun Lee. That was there on that one. I thought Montgomery, again, was solid at minimum. Feels like he's been an upgrade. Jaden Harrell did get out there a little bit as he returns from injury, but does it have the feeling to you that this is going to be Jaden Montgomery's job in the middle? Carson Shire, he was flying around making plays. Entringer, again, he was outstanding. In a game where the defensive line was a little bit quiet, I thought the back seven certainly stepped up in a big time way, and we saw a lot of good things out of them. Something's off with special teams again. Something is wrong in the kicking department, and this has nothing to do with the 66-yard attempt to end the first half. Look, the left side of the line got blown up. That's why that happened. Yes, there's going to be a lower trajectory. And I'll be honest, at the time, I didn't have a problem with it. And yes, you can look at it, revisionist history, and say, oh, what a dumb decision. But at the time, here's the other part. And I've heard a lot of this. Because before the whistle came, Drew Stevens took a kick, and he didn't get there. I mean, it was short. Got about halfway in. And that's where my seats are. And so, saw it. Drew Stevens did not have full effort, though, on that kick. I mean, that was not him giving it his all. And you're definitely on the reaches of things. I mean, he's got to hit one basically perfect to kick at a 66-yarder. He's not Brandon Aubrey of the Cowboys. That's not who he is. He's got a strong leg, but that guy's 1 of 1, regardless. So I don't think anybody should use that as definitive proof that it shouldn't have happened. The decision in general, I know people go back to Iowa State game last year and would rather see that than arm punt that we got from McNamara. Still, I didn't hate it at the moment. I think there was an opportunity, and there still might be for a long one, just maybe not 66 yards. Back though to Drew Stevens and another missed field goal outside of that. Just pushed it a little bit right. Looked like everything was good. And we talked about the Indiana game. The laces were in. Laces were not out on that one. They were in to the kicker. But it's hard because we know it's not a talent thing for Drew Stevens. But I mentioned this in the beginning of the year when we saw his first missed kick. It just, because of how poorly it went at the end of the year 2 years ago, I think we're all just a little bit concerned. You're more nervous than you would be with a guy with this kind of talent, with a guy that is there now with Nate Kadings and career field goals in University of Iowa program history. A guy that we know has the leg, certainly has the ability, and you just go back to, is it something happening between the head? Is it the long snap? Is it whatever it is? Something just looks off with him. Hey, got to give credit though to Reese Dakin. Dakin only had 2 punts, and yes, one of them went into the end zone for a touchback, but still, he had a couple of bombs, just absolute missiles. And this was the Reese Dakin I thought we were going to see throughout the course of the year. You know, for a long time last season, I thought he was a bit of a disappointment, but he came on in the back half of the year. And I know we have pretty high standards for our punters here at Iowa, but Dakin, really, really good on that one and needed that. You needed to see that growth out of him in his second year as the starter because he's got another one in front of him and hopefully two more, and then you're good to go and you'll figure out who the next punter is going to be. What else? Special teams. Weegan, another big return. He's so special. Getting him involved a couple of different ways, getting him some different looks. You have to do it. You're looking for playmakers, and you're going to have to scheme some things up. Tim Lester definitely was able to do that. You know, the touchdown that he had on the jet sweep, I don't think he gets in if he's not grabbed by the defender there, because that defender almost spun him back in. It didn't look like he was going to get the edge. It didn't look like he was going to get the edge and have the ability to turn it back up. That thing was going to be stretched out and probably bumped out of bounds. Instead, the defender just got a small piece of him, hooked him, and that little hook, I think, turned him back inside, was able to get him into the end zone after the Gronowski big-time run. Keep it going. Vanderzee, got to see him out there. There were a couple of times later in the game. Where's Vanderzee? Get him out there more. I know he's getting back from injury. I want him out there basically every snap, but had that good catch. It was short of the first down, but that good catch in the first half of the game where he came diving in, got taken off his course, rerouted it, and was able to make a dive and grab about a yard shy of the first down. Speaking of short of the first down, yes, short of the first down, late in the first half. Also, before Iowa got the interception with Gronowski, something you got to know. It's where the ball is when you start your slide. It's not where your feet are. It's not where you end up. The quarterback and you're giving yourself up. It's back there. And he was short. I don't know if he was a full yard short, but he was definitely short, I thought, of the first down. Again, another thing we'll rewatch and get a recap of a deeper dive into everything after this one gets done. As you could hear, voices struggling. Kinnick was great. Kinnick was loud. Another one of those fun environments. So happy to be there. So we continue to persevere and make our way through this. Let's see. What else did I have in my notes for the game? I got a couple more for Deshaun Lee talked about him. Oh, yeah. I talked about Kirk Ferentz and the press conference, the emotional Kirk that was there. I didn't like the way that the end of the first half was going. Just clock situations. It's not one of Kirk Ferentz's strengths. And those are things that at times leave you head scratching, but you got the win. Oh, here's the other thing I had in the notes. Iowa, and yes, if you were sitting around me, you heard me probably yelling, run the ball. I said run the ball a lot. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, because it's really all they could do. But you have two different two-point conversions, and I thought that Kirk went for it too early. There was 19 minutes and 19 seconds left in the game when he went for the first one, 21-16, and that one failed. And then again, after you take the 25-24 lead, you can still run the ball on a two-point conversion. The way this team is built, guess what you should do? Probably run the football. At least maybe have more of an RPO look. I think that would probably make more sense, but what they're doing, and this dates back to the offensive coordinator before Tim Lester, those 2-point plays, woof, there's some ugly ones, as we go through that. So our final question for here, and this is a big one, is what's still out there for this Iowa football team? Playing for the Pig this week. My favorite rivalry game is against Minnesota. I'll talk about that this week. Then you get a bye week before the gauntlet of November. You take on Oregon. And, yeah, Oregon dominated Rutgers. Still, that Oregon team kind of coming to Kinnick in November, maybe with an early kickoff. Are you scared? I don't think you should be. With the physicality that this Iowa team's playing at right now, yeah, they got speed. Yeah, they got some dudes. Iowa's played teams like that. Of course, the road trip after that to USC. And even as USC lost tonight to Notre Dame, there's a rainstorm. The team's got athletes, and we know Iowa's struggles when they go to the West Coast. After that, it's Michigan State. All right, you would assume at home that's going to be certainly the easiest one. Then you go to Nebraska. It'll come down to a field goal, and Iowa will win. And Nebraska media and fans will be befuddled, but they kind of are always that way. That's what's left. And when you start thinking big, we'll do that when we come back. Thinking big for this Iowa football team. What is still out there for the Hawkeyes as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes? Let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. That's why I started using Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Help me organize all my accounts, track my spending, and get a better handle on my investments without even having to touch a spreadsheet. It's all there for you. I love how you can customize things, make it work for you, and make it work for your mind. And that definitely is something that helps out. Plus, as a small business owner, this is something, I have a lot of different accounts, a lot of different money coming in from different revenue sources. And because of that, it makes it much simpler for me and my family, my wife, to figure out exactly what we have going on with our financial goals. Monarch's visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where my money's going and how to make it work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Monarch.com. Trent Condon back with you one final time. Locked On Hawkeyes. As always, thanks for being with us. Hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube, or a 5-star review would greatly help us on the podcast side. All right, wrapping it up. What's still out there? Well, I mentioned the schedule. This is a schedule that isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Not with the way this team is playing. And yes, you can point and say, oh man, this team should be 6-1. This team could be 7-0. And yeah, and I think that's going to linger for us for a while. And certainly if Iowa takes care of business this week against Minnesota, I think that's going to be another one that will be there still. Your backs are against the wall. But very simply, let's start with this. Iowa runs the table. Iowa finishes the season 10-2. They're in the college football playoff. There is not one realistic scenario out there that I can envision that Iowa doesn't get into the bracket at 10-2. Yeah, the Iowa State losses looking worse and worse. They got a big game themselves this week coming up next week against BYU. That aside, that loss without your quarterback in the fourth quarter against Indiana, where you're screen pass away from setting up a chip shot to win it, again, different conversation. And some of the other metrics that are out there, I'll be interested to see Sunday when the release of Bill Connolly's rankings. We talked about that last week. Iowa was 25th. How much higher maybe they go in his numbers this week. I don't think they're probably going to be ranked in the AP poll or the coaches poll, anything like that, when they come out both Sunday. But you look at this team they're building. Now, Kirk said before the season, he liked the team. He had a lot of questions, but he really liked this group, and that's starting to build. And you look at November under Kirk Ferentz recently, and what a great job this program is. Big opportunities. The kind of wins they put on the resume would put them there. But that is a long ways to go. And it's got to open up this week, and it's got to start or continue, whatever your vantage point is, against Phil Fleck and the Minnesota Gophers. Fresh off a win against Nebraska. They rush the field. They're fired up. Fleck, he's got to be at the forefront of everything, and the dude just bothers me, as you'll hear a lot this week. But this is a real football team. This is a football team that is built in a very similar fashion to Iowa, and it's going to be a bare knuckle brawl. It's going to be pushing and fighting for every inch of this one. Very well could come down to one big play, one big moment, and at Kinnick, you feel pretty good. That moment's going to go Iowa's way. We'll break it down as only we do each and every day here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. It's hate week for this guy from North Iowa. Iowa, Minnesota, my favorite rivalry game. Iowa gets it done 25-24 over Penn State. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. I need some water. I need some rest. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Go Hawks!